Former crime boss Miles Skinner, known as Kane, is serving a life sentence in a maximum security prison. Over the years, behind bars, he's become a respected figure, someone others think twice before crossing. Out in the free world, his son Ricky is struggling to survive, forced to sell drugs just to get by, despite the heavy risks that come with it. One day, Kane's longtime nemesis, known as Redfoot, is caught dealing drugs and sent to the same prison. Upon arrival, a guard warns him that who he was on the outside no longer matters, and that he'd better learn to follow the rules. But the inmate confidently replies that by the end of the week, he'll be the one running the place. At the same time, Kane is informed about his arrival, which can only mean one thing: his days of peace are over. Seeing an opening, Red decides to talk to Kane in the shower. He tells him that the past should be left behind, and that whatever happened between them was nothing personal, just business. But the big man keeps to himself, showing no emotion, and a suddenly appearing guard drives Redfoot away, leaving him without a response. Later, sitting in his cell, Kane recalls his run-ins with Redfoot. Once, Kane maimed one of Red's henchmen and forbade Red himself from dealing drugs in his club. In response, Redfoot and his gang decided to take revenge and attacked Kane's club. Unfortunately, Kane's wife was killed in the shootout. Redfoot escaped, and the police, arriving promptly, arrested Kane without even giving him a moment to mourn his loss. Meanwhile, the warden, along with his assistant Joe, holds an educational session with the juvenile offenders who ended up behind bars for theft and hooliganism. Thanks to the One for All and Pipeline programs, they have a chance to leave these walls and gain their freedom, but only if they make the right choice. Rufus, nicknamed Slippy, is transferred from the county jail, guilty of sending Redfoot to prison for life. Naturally, the gangster hasn't forgiven the former member of his gang for the betrayal and ordered his men to take him out, which they did. Stabbing Slippy several times with a shank, Kane decides to go after Redfoot properly and asks his protege, Willie, to arrange a meeting with a guard named Troy. Derek provides the bribe money, and soon the men get the chance to settle things face-to-face, one-on-one. However, Redfoot shows up free while Kane's hands remain shackled. Red tells the big man that strength isn't on his side and that he has plenty of fighters inside the prison, then strikes first. Even with his hands bound, Kane fights back, seizing Red's makeshift knife. But at the last moment, the guards arrive and prevent Kane from slitting the audacious man's throat. Later, the warden himself visits Kane's cell and strips him of all privileges for 2 months, including listening to music and other forms of entertainment, and also forbids him from leaving the cell. Meanwhile, out in the streets, Ricky continues his criminal activities and gets involved in a turf dispute with a guy named JD. Ricky's associate, Mike, goes to JD with a proposal to merge their gangs and expand their influence across the city, but JD kills him and, as a message, returns his body to Ricky. After some rest, Kane unexpectedly begins experiencing hallucinations, which both alarm and frighten him. So, when Willie was distributing books to the inmates, Kane asks for a copy of the Bible. A little later, the warden calls Kane into his office and offers him a chance to participate in a program designed to keep young guys involved in gangs out of prison. Kane snorts contemptuously, having no desire to deal with petty punks, and proposes a deal to the warden. If Willie is allowed to play the saxophone again in the solitary block, Kane will, reluctantly, speak to the young boys. Ricky decides to take revenge on JD for Mike's death and, together with an accomplice, ambushes him at the house where JD is throwing a party for his people. But instead of JD, the accomplice kills his brother, and when a shootout breaks out between them, the police arrive and arrest everyone involved. For his part in the murder, Ricky is sentenced to 7 years and sent to the same prison as his father. Learning this, Kane rushes to the yard to talk to his son, but Ricky meets him with extreme hostility, blaming him for his mother's death. At the same time, 2 inmates, with the silent consent of the guards, attack a guy in the laundry room and sexually assault him. Kane keeps his end of the deal with the warden and talks to the teenagers, who, recognizing him as a criminal authority, look up to him like a star. But as Kane explains to the boys what awaits them if they continue down the wrong path, their confidence and defiance quickly fade. During lunch, the 2 attackers harass Ricky in the cafeteria line, but the boy is no pushover and exchanges sharp words with them. Later, when they fail to get their way, the inmates return to the guy from the laundry room but this time, Kane steps in to defend him. After the attackers leave, Kane advises the young man to find someone to watch his back, or they won't leave him alone. The boy responds that all he needs is to serve out his time, but after a short time, the young man is killed in his cell for trying to resist the assault. Ricky is taken outside to clear a pile of garbage. When he is left alone, the two attackers return, but Ricky manages to fight them off once again. Later, during yard time, Kane warns Derek to keep his men away from his son, or there will be serious consequences. However, when Ricky learns about this conversation, he seeks out his father and demands that he stay out of his business. He also decides to pour out all his grievances and resentments that have built up over the years. Finally, the boy defiantly declares that he considers his father dead, and then walks away, leaving Kane with no chance to defend himself. After some time, Kane confides in Will that he has once again seen in his cell the people he once killed. He takes this as a reminder of his own sins and the families he destroyed, which drives him to prayer and repentance. Over time, the headaches tormenting Kane intensify, and at one point he collapses in the hallway, his body racked with convulsions. He comes to in the medical wing, lying on a hospital bed, where neurosurgeon Dr. Zeltzer delivers devastating news. Kane has been diagnosed with brain cancer and, according to the prognosis, has no more than 6 months to live. After careful consideration, the big man refuses to take the prescribed medication, choosing to remain alive and endure the unbearable pain rather than become a vegetable. Shortly after, at his request, a guard brings Ricky to him. The boy is outraged and behaves arrogantly toward his father, but when he learns that Kane has brain cancer, he softens. Kane admits his mistakes and asks his son for forgiveness for never being there for the family. And though it is hard for him to say the words, "I love you, son," he sincerely tells Ricky that he has feelings for him deep down in his heart. Some time passes. Kane's condition worsens with each passing day, and only Willie's saxophone playing helps distract him from his dark thoughts. One day, the big man, pushing through the excruciating pain, goes to his son to extract a promise that he will never return to prison after serving his sentence, that he will break the vicious cycle, help others find the right path, and never end up behind bars. Ricky makes the promise, and at that moment, Derek approaches them to demand a favor from Kane. He protected his son from the harassment of those scoundrels, and now he needs Kane to bring drugs into the prison. The task is far from easy, but as they say, a debt is a debt. Soon, JD was transferred to the same prison as Ricky and Kane, much to his delight, as he now had the chance to get revenge on Ricky for his brother's death. During a walk in the yard, Kane unexpectedly begins telling his son about Jesus, and then asks him to kneel so they can pray together. However, he is unable to finish the prayer due to a severe attack. While Kane lies unconscious in the medical wing, JD joins Derek's gang, promising to establish a drug flow into the prison through his guys on the outside. After regaining some strength, Kane, with Joe's help, arranges a meeting with Derek, having learned that JD is gunning for his son and has been asked to eliminate him. Derek responds that he is already doing business with JD and has no intention of breaking his word. Kane then reminds him that Derek only pulls his schemes because Kane allows it, and that he shouldn't forget how Kane once saved his skin. After the conversation, Derek had no intention of obeying Kane and ordered his men to deal with him and his son. Later, Derek warns JD that Kane is planning to settle the score with him and promises to give JD the chance to get revenge on Ricky. The warden begins to suspect that something is brewing. He asks Kane about it, and Kane tells him that he intends to kill JD because his son is in mortal danger. Meanwhile, JD sharpens the edge of a razor, preparing to exact his revenge. Seeing the all-consuming hatred in JD's eyes, Ricky tries to reason with him during cafeteria cleanup. He wasn't the one who shot JD's brother, and he had even tried to convince his accomplice not to shoot indiscriminately. But JD no longer cared. All he wanted now was to get back at Ricky. A little later, Brenda, JD's mother, unexpectedly arrives at the prison. With tears in her eyes, she begs Kane to take care of her son, and to get her wish, she reveals a shocking truth. Many years ago, when she ran away to another city, she was pregnant. JD is his son, his flesh and blood, and he's all she has. Soon, as promised, Derek arranges a meeting between JD and Ricky in the boiler room. Since one of them is expected to die at the end of the fight, The other inmates eagerly start placing bets. Meanwhile, the stunned Kane is informed of what's happening, and seizing the right moment, he knocks out his guard and rushes to help his son. The fight has already begun, and just as JD swings a shank at Ricky, Kane steps between them, taking the blow himself. Dying, he tells the boys that they are brothers, and urges them to make peace. The film ends with an epilogue, showing how Ricky heeded his father's call and completely turned his life around, giving up drugs. He now participates in the Pipeline program and helps young people. JD is released early for good behavior and joins Ricky in helping others. And here's where even more stories await you. Subscribe to the channel, because it's always exciting with us. See you soon.